We've come all the way now to the end of a long arc, a 2-month arc at Collins and Collins, a place that we will not visit again, except we will use different offices in the same building. So we physically went to again, but as characters in world, we will not see this particular office again. So to say goodbye to it, I have brought along a special guest. You can see a longer version of the conversation and bonus content at the Patreon. My name is Ashley Clements.
And my name is Margaret Dunlap.
And you're watching the Look Back Diaries. Yay! Hello.
Has it been 2 months already? It seems like a
it
moment
just
ago.
Collins and Collins just flew right on by.
Flew right by.
Actually, I realized this is the shoot day that you were not there for. This is the only shoot day that you were absent for.
That's right. I was in the East Coast for some reason, but this is the one time I was not on set for the shoot, and I had to train Rachel and Kate how to do script continuity.
But you did more than that as a presence on set. You always gave very useful notes, just all these different things to try. Occasionally, we would also actually be messing with a line, but for the most part, it was just like an acting note of, do we want to say it this way? Do we want to try it this way? Do we want to have these versions for options in the edit? And you gave a lot of really great feedback that is in the episodes. Like, so not having you there, I remember feeling your presence in that way more than scripty way, based on like the side that I was on. Let's look at this episode. That is a gal pal episode.
Yes. I love a gal pal episode. I love a Lizzie Sherwood episode.
We love a besties. I called this outfit my watermelon outfit. I guess sort of reverse watermelon. The sweater makes several appearances. The dress wasn't mine, but like maybe Laura gave it to me or something, and it didn't like really fit quite right, but I was like, I can put a sweater on this and make it something for Lizzie Bennett. But it's very much not a fall color palette.
But it's California and you were headed south.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it was like 80 degrees outside. And also, I pop off the weird beige background. So,
totally,
you know,
yeah, no, that's a great costume for that background. Oh, we're about to hit the road, except
we're doing things.
Here comes the monkey wrench.
Still amused by Game of Gourds. Also, this woman is like so up in. Yeah, no, Winter Squash is Coming was clearly the superior title.
Clearly the superior tagline, and Catherine DeBerg's last-minute nonsensical notes were certainly never inspired by any experience I had as a TV writer with notes that we would get from the studio at the last second about things that did not seem like they were making things better.
And we're like, but that's just different. You just want it to be different. She looks so like nicely fall.
Mm-hmm. But like our first response is like, sure, we'll make the change.
Right, but here we are, exactly, we're explaining here again connective tissue of like why she's here at the last minute right before Thanksgiving, and because our episodes came out Monday and Thursday, right? So this would have come out on Thanksgiving. I think the conceit was that this was like Wednesday night.
Yeah, like she's recording this right before she gets on the road, which is why there's that kind of cliffhangery thing at the end. Like, I'm not sure how this episode is going to end yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's bad. Yeah, but Winter Squash is Coming is very good. I know. She wants it to be good.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, right. This is when I do something weird to make this happen.
Yeah,
right?
You.
This is not happening. It's time to bring in the big guns. Hey, Lydia.
I love a Gilligan cut.
Yeah, the one about healthy eating when Ricky Collins played the Wizard of Floss.
I would love to see that video.
This episode for sure is that Margaret is not against a pun.
I like that the healthy eating also included dental hygiene.
Dental hygiene, yeah.
It's really better living, if you will.
If you will. I'm I'm a little, I mean, I'm glad Charlotte made it home and we couldn't have produced it, but having the second grade play with Ricky Collins as the Wizard of Floss would have been hilarious.
You know, it would have involved child actors. It would have been a lot.
Like we don't have the budget to move our camera around. We certainly don't have the budget to create
Yeah.
extra video.
Probably someone had a home video.
Yeah. I don't know if Charlotte ever in canon explicitly found out about what was going on, though she probably watched this episode at some point.
She probably did watch the episode. She probably had that much insight. I mean, it's funny because like we have this nice in the previous episode, we do have this nice like kind of, moment with
Mhm.
Lizzie and Collins where, he has grown, he recognizes, some personal boundaries and is very, he gets his own little arc, which is really nice. And then here Lizzie's like, I'll blackmail him. And you wrote both of them. So
You push.
we had to get her home. We had to get Charlotte home.
We had to make it happen, and we needed something to be going on in that episode, and so this was the business that I came up with, and I will fall on that sword. Collins was a lot of fun to write as a character. Collins and Darcy were both, and I think, I don't know if this has come up in the discussions, but Margaret likes a long sentence with big words in it. And those were two
Shocker.
characters that you can bust out the $5 words for, and their voices are very different because Collins is just throwing out words to make himself sound smarter than he maybe is because he's a little insecure, and Darcy just lives in that space of like, well, why would I use a word other than obfuscation? Because that is the word that means precisely what I want it to say. If you're not familiar with the term, that's not Darcy's problem. He's internalized the vocabulary, and I think for Collins, it's a little more like a shiny object thing. Like, I've learned this cool word or these cool terms, and I want to use them a lot because I think they're really cool and nifty.
Well, and like Collins, it is really interesting to compare them because there are similarities between them, especially in our universe. And what you feel in Collins is this like desire to be liked and this like desire to impress, and like there's a lot of effort in Collins. I mean, like he even kind of just sounds like someone who was trying really hard
All the
and
time.
like, and it's exhausting, right? Where you're just like, oh my God, shush, like this is a lot of talking. Whereas Darcy, and it makes sense when you think about his upbringing, his background, like he feels absolutely no need to impress.
Yeah.
Which explains some of his terrible first appearance, right? Where he's here to say, like, obviously you're going to be happy to hear that I'm in love with you, even though it's terribly embarrassing for me.
Right. Yeah.
And hasn't been told no a lot. Whereas like Collins is someone who's been told no a lot.
Yeah.
Darcy is someone who's not heard no a lot.
Yeah, and I think you absolutely nailed it. Like, Darcy operates from a place of security, and Collins is operating from a place, even though he would probably deny it, of some pretty intense insecurity. And it's why I think he wants to attach himself to de Burgh, because that's that status of this fancy patron of his. And I think it's why, Charlotte ultimately was the right choice for that job, because Charlotte also has that element of steadiness that I think Collins and Collins desperately needed.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, like Lizzie and Collins would never have worked. There would have been all this friction, whereas like Charlotte doesn't get ruffled by his rufflings. We've already seen her with Lizzie be that kind of like rock steady, I will just figure out the problem. Like, and here this episode's a great example of her just going like, I will fix it.
Mhm.
I'll just do it. And she doesn't really you know, indulge in the anxiety of it. It's just like there's a problem, it needs to be fixed. I will fix it. And
Yeah.
so it makes her an invaluable partner to Collins. And, you know, we have all always kind of, I believe, continued to imagine that like Charlotte basically ran that company.
For sure, and probably does not get the external credit perhaps she deserves for it, but hopefully Mr. Collins, hopefully her compensation package
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, you know what?
recognizes
She doesn't need the credit as long as she's got the salary and the benefits.
and the
So
benefits.
I hope she's got stock in this very successful
Well,
company.
and also I think the nice thing that we see in this episode is the balance between Charlotte and Lizzie's friendship of, because Charlotte is so steady and so, this is the job, I know my role, I know what I was hired for, we have to make this deadline. And Lizzie is in there being like, no, it's Thanksgiving and you've been in crunch mode for like the 2 months that I've been here and you need a day off. And that I think is what pushes her to like resort to blackmail in order to make that happen logically and sensibly. When you're starting out, like, the deadline is whatever they tell you the deadline is. And I think if, Charlotte's still running Collins and Collins 10 years later, like, she's probably in a place now where she would be more apt to say, you know what, I think this can wait for Monday, let's take the weekend. And just having the
Right.
experience to know like what are deadlines and what are deadlines, and
And
having
being able to delegate as well. And
being able to
yeah.
delegate and having the sort of standing of security and being like, I'm not going to get fired over this. If I say, no, this is an important time and I need to take it. So
If we had the budget, I just wish we'd made like a Game of Gourds trailer.
yeah. If there'd been like a
Like,
graphic or something.
I picture like gourds being thrown and then like exploding into flames and like just, like Game of Gourds. Like just this
Yeah,
idea of like,
I think I always pictured it kind of like an even more extreme version of Iron Chef that like only related to winter squash. Like, it was this internet cooking show, but then also like stuff would blow up.
I mean, somebody do that, right? How many winter squash recipes could there be?
Maybe
You
someone told
winner
us.
your gourd. We'll find out. No.
We'll find out.
Let's take a look at the comments on this. Athena Chen says, every time I watch this episode, it upsets me that Ms. de Berg thinks there's any tagline better than Winter Squash is coming. There isn't. That's the best tagline in the world. We
Yeah.
agree with you,
Very,
Athena.
very smart lady, but very wrong about that.
Susie, a valiant effort, says, Game of Gourds, you win or you're squashed. I could totally work for Collins and Collins.
I will take that as a resume, and yeah, you could.
Kathleen Villanueva says, this was like a filler episode, but it was worth it for seeing Lizzie pay back Charlotte, who has always had her back. Besides, having a breather is good. Yes, Kathleen, sometimes we had filler episodes.
But we
I
tried
mean,
to
like
make it
filler
funny,
in
and the
terms
nice
of,
thing is it
okay,
works.
there's not a tremendous amount of plot movement, but that's true ultimately of a lot of our episodes.
Yeah, and I think it is a valid point of like, we've just had, we've recently had some huge reveals and a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
You do kind of need a chance to let that all breathe, especially if you're binging later on.
It's actually kind of important to have, I mean, you see it all the time in different ways, right? Like the comedic relief scene coming after a big emotional scene. There's just like, we can't just keep everything at one level of intensity. It's hard on us as the viewer.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't, and it's also becomes less interesting because it's all kind of, everything's up here and we need to kind of, and that's also how life works, right? Like something's very intense and then things aren't. And if we're trying to sort of replicate this vlogger's life, then it's like, yeah, a real vlogger would sometimes come on and go like, I don't really have anything to talk about today.
Not a ton going on right now. Yeah, it's when I was in grad school, one of the things that they explicitly taught us was scenes of preparation and aftermath. where you have the scene that's about the build up to the big scene, or the scene that's about, sort of everyone recovering and reacting to the big scene. And you kind of need that both for the pacing variation, and also because it gives both the characters and the audience time to appreciate how big the big scene is. Like, you sort of like, sometimes it's best served by having these like, oh wow, this thing that's about to happen is a really big thing, and we all need to, and everyone's like, it's someone preparing for a date or to, make a big presentation or something like that. And then the scene of aftermath of like, wow, I don't believe we just rode the back of a crocodile down a lava flow away from an exploding volcano, and then managed to, run to a boat in safety, and we and the crocodile have survived. Like, you need a moment to let that sink in.
Margaret, I would like that script now, please. You can't tease us like that.
Speaking of upcoming Lydia drama, ah,
That's right.
and I'm all confused because I unmirrored my camera so that people could read the title of the book. But like, this is Jane Austen's Sex and Romance Engaging with Desire in the Novels and Beyond. It's anthology put out. I was approached by some people I met at the conference for 18th century studies that was in Los Angeles, and like, I think JBI and I were there. And it was so, like, my dad's an academic, so I've been to academic conferences and I know that world a little bit, but it's so different from VidCon because it's a bunch of,
What if it was the same as VidCon, though?
I mean, in a way it was, because it was a whole bunch of academics really geeking out about the Lizzie Bennet Diaries, so it was very sweet. And a couple
That's fun.
The editors approached me and they're like, hey, we're putting together this anthology, would you write a chapter about it? Because they wanted to talk about basically sex in Jane Austen. And I'm like, oh, I could do that. And then, given the way academic publishing goes, like, I didn't hear anything for years, and I'm like, well, I guess they couldn't find someone to publish the anthology. I wound up writing it like during 2020, as we're all like locked down pre-vaccine. They're like, we sold the thing.
A great time to have a project.
Can you still write the chapter? So I wrote it's called To YouTube from Gretna Green, Rewriting Lydia Bennet for a Digital Age.
I just love the title.
It was a lot of fun and also bizarre because, like, I feel like the article that I wrote 8 to 9 years after the fact is very different than the one I would have written immediately in the aftermath. And
when you were looking back,
as it were. But no, I wound up like, I called up Mary Kate and I'm like, hey, can I interview about like what was going through your head while we were doing all of this? And it was a cool thing to work on. So look for it at an academic library near you. So that is like the weirdest plug you are ever gonna have.
I don't think it's the weirdest plug. It is like, it's something I hear very frequently, is that Lizzie Bennet got used in academic situations in a variety of cases. Like, it's been used, I think, primarily probably in like high schools as a way to get people engaged with Jane Austen when they're reading Pride and Prejudice, to talk about adaptation or just to kind of like get young people excited about a Regency romance. But it's also been used in a lot of media studies classes in terms of how we did the transmedia, turning it into, the very specific type of internet adaptation that we did. And then, of course, it's popular in Jane Austen circles in terms of like specifically how it interacts with the source material. So it makes a lot of sense and absolutely something I still get messages about.
I am very much amused that as we were doing this 10-year look back, I literally just got my contributor copy like a couple of weeks ago. And it's just Lizzie Bennet is coming back into my life and I'm here for it. It's great.
Yeah, so check out the sex book.
Check out the Jane Austen and sex book. Yeah.
It is actually, I mean, like, I'm interested. It's a very interesting topic because obviously it's implied but never outright discussed because of the mores of the time. So it's an interesting thing to look into. And how cool that you were approached because of this show.
Yeah, it was super cool.
Yeah, it'll just forever be weird that like Jane Austen scholars watch this show.
At that conference, we like brought our Lizzie Bennet sizzle reel with us, and there's a moment where like, are any of you guys, because we were on a panel with a bunch of other people discussing all kinds of different aspects of Jane Austen's writing, and at one point we're like, before we show this, is everyone here familiar with the Lizzie Bennet Diaries? And like one person, like this one middle-aged guy in the audience, had not seen the show, and we're like, well, this will be a great introduction for you. The rest of you guys just enjoy it.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I thought you were going to say that like one person knew it, but no.
No, they were all like, they'd all been watching the show. It was really cool.
What did they think of the Game of Gourds joke? Did they like it?
You know, I forgot to ask them, but I'm sure that I'm sure they would all be behind Winter Squash is Coming.
That's obviously the best tagline, and you're the best. And thanks for being here for another look back. I give thanks to you in this Giving Thanks episode that will air somewhere around Thanksgiving still, because that's when it aired originally. Thankful for you. Bye.
Thankful for you.